Kia. Yeah, I think he says Kia Soul. So go a little more west. Yeah, because it's one street to the west of Western. It's a street with a lot of palm trees. The first one over. Yeah, I think it's this car. And he just turned west. Don't know for sure, because there's no cars behind it, and we don't have a make and model. So this is just a guess. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, so he's coming right at us, Jim, coming northbound. It's a guess that this is it, don't know for sure. But it's got a lot of damage, yeah. And it's in the right area, so. Okay. Kathy, as you said, this is Hawthorne police that originated this pursuit of a stolen car. The vehicle looks like a Kia Soul to me, but we're all the way in South Los Angeles. He's been working the South LA area for the most part. So at this point, Hawthorne is no longer behind it, but we do have a sheriff's ship overhead, and I am hearing chatter about it on CHP, but there's no ground units behind it. So this is tracking mode only, which is going to be helicopter only. Now, at one point, there were 2 passengers, literally just about 2 minutes ago. He dropped them off. So at this point, it is now just the driver, we believe, that is still trying to evade the helicopter, at least here, as he makes his way through 43rd place at St. Andrews. So this is a residential area where the police pursuit continues. Right below us, Jim. Yeah, go ahead. I gotcha. Yeah, blowing stop signs, blowing red lights, really not obeying any rules of the road, to be honest. And the vehicle itself looks like it's been involved in at least one collision. I do see some significant damage there to the front driver's side of the vehicle. So this, again, has been going on for quite some time. So he's had plenty of time to get involved in a collision. Apparently that already happened. This apparently started about 5:23 in the Hawthorne area on surface streets. It was in the area of Broadway and Oxford streets. And so what likely happened there was that the Hawthorne police officers ran the plates on the vehicle, and they came back as a stolen, and that's when they tried to pull the vehicle over, but the driver failed to yield, and the pursuit was on. And again, it's been going on now for about 30 minutes. Hawthorne police no longer directly behind it, but we do have a sheriff's ship overhead. Yeah, really erratic, and I have to mention again that he dropped off 2 of his passengers here in the area not long ago. So I would venture to say that this is an area that he's familiar with, and considering that he just dropped off his buddies, he's looking for a place to ditch the vehicle as well. Again, this is coming back as a stolen car, so if he can ditch it and run away far enough, this guy could possibly get away. There's no ground units behind him, so he will have at least a few minutes of advantage on police. Oh, look at that little close call there with that pedestrian there. We've seen a couple of close calls already because, as you mentioned, running red lights, running stop signs, and really not obeying any of the rules of the road as he continues at what are high speeds for surface streets here, because these are residential areas where the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, and this guy's going easily 30 miles an hour more than that. Sure. Yeah, it's really the good. So at this point, they are again in surveillance mode, which means that we're not going to see any ground units behind the vehicle, and it's going to be helicopter only. So the reason they do that is when the driver is driving as erratically as what we've witnessed, the police think that if the driver doesn't see any ground units behind him, that maybe he'll start to drive a little more normally. And right now, it seems like he's driving normally, but it's only because he had that stop. Prior to that, it didn't seem like surveillance mode was working at all. So in situations like this where it's not working, that's when the watch commander could possibly authorize for those ground units to get behind the vehicle again. And once the vehicles are behind it, that's when they have a little more options because they could deploy a spike strip, they could do a pit maneuver. They really do have some more pursuit intervention tactics that they could possibly use, whereas right now all they can really do is just follow him from the helicopter. Haven't found a pattern yet, which is going to work against the police here if they're thinking about putting a spike strip out at some point, because there's really no rhyme or reason to this person's driving. They're just kind of all over the neighborhood here. But you saw the sheriff's helicopter there. There's a good chance that the guy driving this vehicle just saw that police helicopter because he was so low. So this guy still knows that he's in a pursuit. He can see the helicopter, even though he doesn't see any ground units behind him. But again, it does appear like he's slowing down and possibly looking for a place to ditch the car out of the sight of that police helicopter. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've actually had that happen before where a driver who was in a pursuit was watching our coverage. And the reason I knew he was because I had asked a hypothetical question, and then he actually answered it with his hands, putting up a couple digits to answer what my question had been. So that, ever since then, I knew that it is definitely a possibility that these drivers are watching our coverage, and so they know that this is still a police pursuit. But of course, he can likely see the helicopter as well at the altitudes that the helicopter was just over him. It'd be really difficult for him not to have seen it. So he still knows it's a chase. So in this case, surveillance mode maybe isn't the best option, and it's likely probably best to just get some ground units behind him, because he will at some point try to ditch that car and take off running. Yeah, it came back as a stolen car, and it's a Kia, likely a Kia Soul. And we've had a number of pursuits lately, and a lot of the vehicles have been Kias, and this particular type of Kia too. It looks like he's just slowing down there because that driver was trying to reverse into a parking spot, but is still relatively slow, all things considered. And you see, This might be a dead end, but yeah, he's actually turning into a driveway possibly. Yeah, so he saw that dead end that was coming up and realized his mistake. So now he's U-turning to try to get out of it. I thought perhaps, there we go, people coming out because they're hearing about this pursuit in their neighborhood. So they're trying to catch a glimpse for themselves, which is never what you want to do. You want to stay indoors and just watch it on TV because you don't know if this person is possibly armed or could use that vehicle against you. So these types of situations are not something that should be taken lightly. Yeah, that's always a concern when a pursuit is at this time of the day when, as you said, people are just coming home from work or school, so you do have a lot of that pedestrian traffic. You have cyclists, especially on these narrow residential streets. You can get a lot of that type of activity. So it actually would be safer if you got back on the freeway because at least it does take a lot of those dangerous elements out of the equation. But at this point of the day, every freeway here in our area is going to be extremely congested, and this guy probably knows that. So he's probably trying to avoid getting onto the freeway so that he doesn't get stuck in traffic and is instead going to continue to work surface streets here in the Adams-Normandy area. Yeah, absolutely. So that's really up to the watch commander to determine if he's going to allow ground units to get behind this guy to try to chase him with units behind him, which was the situation initially. There were ground units behind him, but he was driving pretty recklessly. So that is when they pulled the units off, and it's been helicopter only ever since. Now, the watch commander could also just cancel everything altogether and pull the helicopter off as well, because this is a property crime. It's not a violent crime. This is believed to be a stolen car. So the police department really has to weigh if it is worth it to continue to chase this guy and potentially endanger people, which is not what they want to do. They, of course, want to protect life and property, but in that situation, life is always going to win out. So they could possibly just cancel everything altogether. But for now, they're going to continue to follow, at least with the helicopter, as he continues here on Adams near Normandy. He's canceling. Robert, we're on Adams and Dalton, so we're very close to Adams and Normandy would be the majors. And I was just saying literally 30 seconds ago that there was a possibility that the watch commander could cancel everything altogether. And my pilot, James Pollard, is now telling me that the sheriff's ship, which was the only police unit that was following him, is now being pulled off the chase. So this is going to be a situation where they're going to let him go, at least for now. The reason they're doing that, of course, is they have to weigh the danger level versus getting somebody's stolen car back. And at this point of the day, with the number of pedestrian traffic, the number of vehicles that are out here in the area, the police department in this situation has determined that it's best to just let this guy go for now and try to get the vehicle at some other point out of basically an abundance of caution for protecting life and property here in the area instead. Yeah, exactly. So they were what you're describing as surveillance mode. So basically, the ground units will stay perhaps even a quarter mile back with the helicopter overhead so that the helicopter can continue to keep tabs on the vehicle. And whenever he does see it come to a stop, that's when those ground units can swoop in. But in this situation, as my pilot James Pollard was just telling me, the helicopter has been canceled. So at this point, there's no helicopter overhead and there's no ground units behind him either. So it's a situation where for now, this guy will get away. Unclear how long that's going to go on for, because of course they could catch him in an hour, they could catch him in a day, but for now, because of the number of vehicles and the number of pedestrian traffic in the area, they've decided to let this one go. Yeah, we never heard if he was involved in a collision, but clearly he was. And this was in Hawthorne initially. It started off of Broadway and Oxford were the streets down there where Hawthorne police officers spotted this vehicle, and it came back as a stolen. Now, just in covering police pursuits for a long time, I know that whenever Hawthorne police gets a pursuit, they're pretty quick to bring things to an end. They're great with pit maneuvers. So I don't know if this is a possibility where maybe the vehicle was damaged in a pit maneuver or in an accident after the fact, but clearly significant damage there on the front driver's side of the vehicle. Okay, I'm ready. I can hear you. Okay. Alejandra, estamos aquí en el área de Jefferson Park. Este es un vehículo que supuestamente es un carro robado, que fue primeramente visto en el área de Hawthorne por la policía de esa ciudad. Es una persecución que empezó aproximadamente a las 5:20 en las calles Broadway y Oxford. Ahí fue donde los oficiales de esa ciudad empezaron a seguir el vehículo después de que vieron que era un vehículo robado. Pero ahora estamos en Jefferson Park y ha sido más de 40 minutos desde que esta persecución empezó. Desde entonces, el Departamento del Alguacil ha estado sobre la persecución con su helicóptero, y también la Patrulla de Caminos de California también estuvo asistiendo con la persecución, pero en estos momentos no hay ninguna patrulla de la policía detrás del carro, y el helicóptero también se acaba de ir del área. Pero como les digo, esto es una persecución que ha durado ya aproximadamente 40 minutos. Por un tiempo estuvo en la autopista 110, pero la mayoría del tiempo ha estado en las calles, y en muchas de estas calles han sido calles residenciales, donde hemos visto gente caminando, hemos visto gente en bicicleta, y ha sido una persecución bastante peligrosa, considerando el tráfico aquí en el área. Pero ahorita estamos llegando a la avenida Arlington, acercándonos más hacia el área del sur de Los Ángeles, donde la persecución continúa. Al momento creemos que solo hay una persona adentro del vehículo, porque aproximadamente hace unos 20 minutos dejó que dos personas que estaban en el carro que se salieran del vehículo, y desde entonces ha seguido manejando solo aquí en las calles del sur de Los Ángeles. NBC back with you. Yep, back with NBC. Yeah, it started at about 5:20 in Hawthorne. It was near Broadway and Oxford. So that is when police officers from the Hawthorne Police Department spotted this car. Now, it's unclear if the plates are the rightful plates to the vehicle and they came back as stolen, or if this was a cold-plated vehicle situation where the plates simply don't even match the vehicle, and likely meaning that the vehicle itself is stolen with stolen plates. So it's been going on for a while, approximately 40 minutes or so. It's made its way all the way from Hawthorne up to Jefferson Park, and we're now in South Los Angeles. For a while, we were very close to USC. And it appears that the vehicle was involved in at least one collision at some point, because it does have that significant damage to the front driver's side of the vehicle. He's at our 1 o'clock, Jim. Yeah, so at this point, there's no ground units behind him, and there's no helicopter overhead either. So at this point, basically the pursuit has been terminated in that sense. However, there is always the possibility that further down the road, another police agency could possibly spot this car, and obviously they would see the significant damage to the vehicle, so it'd be easy to spot. And then also they've been notified that not LAPD, but rather Hawthorne Police was in pursuit of a vehicle matching this description. So they could possibly get in the vehicle, or get behind the vehicle rather, as we make our way towards South Los Angeles. Those two other possible agencies would be either LAPD or the LA County Sheriff's Department. If I had to guess, LAPD would be the most likely to possibly follow this car, because usually the Sheriff's Department, thank you, usually the Sheriff's Department is quick to terminate their pursuits, but for now we're here facing southbound on Western, coming up to 37th Street. He's right below us, Jim. Right below us, Jim. Next to a field. Yeah. So, yeah, that is very possible. They wouldn't have any information about the driver based off of the vehicle itself, because it was stolen. When you and I are driving, the police officers behind us can easily run our plates and get our registered information, and be able to know where we live, and could track us down that way. In this case, because the plates don't come back to this person in any way, any information that police could have possibly gotten about this driver would have to come from his friends. He did drop off 2 passengers at one point, and we believe that the Sheriff's Department was able to take them into custody, so they could have given police a name of who is possibly behind the wheel, and of course they could have given them an address as well, which means that police could try to get him at some other point. So for now, there's no units directly behind him, and again, no airship overhead, but clearly still some dangerous driving going on here in South LA. Okay. Yeah, more of the same, Kathy. Just kind of working his way here through residential streets in South Los Angeles. A number of close calls with pedestrians and other drivers. And for a second there, he started driving on the wrong side of the road too, because he didn't want to wait behind some slower moving traffic. But he's back in a residential area, which, as the officer from the CHP was just saying, the watch commander, the sergeant on this, likely canceled because of the traffic conditions. So it goes back to a point that I was making before. The police department, their job is to protect life and property. In this case, the vehicle is the property of somebody, of the rightful owner, and they'd love to get the vehicle back to that person, but they have to take into consideration the lives that could possibly be put in danger if they continue to chase this person. So that watch commander, he weighed his options and decided at this point it's not worth it to continue to chase him, because it's more important to make sure that nobody gets struck by this guy, that nobody gets run over. And so for that reason, at this point, they have pulled all the ground units off of him, as well as the helicopter overhead. The only thing we know about the original vehicle theft was that the vehicle was spotted in the area of Broadway and Oxnard at about 5:20 by Hawthorne police. So that is when they started giving chase. Right before they start pursuing, they always just try to do your traditional traffic stop. In this case, it would have been a high-risk traffic stop. So we usually have what is called a following before we go into a full-on pursuit. So they followed this vehicle for a while. They got some units behind him, likely got the helicopter overhead, and then tried to pull him over. But that is when the driver decided he wasn't stopping, and he and his two buddies kept going. Now, when we got to South Los Angeles, that is where he dropped off his two passengers. So at this point, we believe that that driver is solo in this vehicle, a Kia Soul, which does have some damage there to that front bumper on the driver's side. It's unclear how that happened, but considering the number of close calls that we've seen so far, it wouldn't surprise me if he was involved in a collision during the course of this pursuit. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead, Kathy. Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say, so obviously they had gone into surveillance mode because it was so dangerous. They had the helicopter on him, and that helicopter followed him for quite some time in hopes that he would change his driving style. That's the whole point of going into surveillance mode. They want this driver to think that he is no longer being pursued, but he's actually doing some hand gestures in our direction. So it seems like this guy still knows that there's helicopters above him, so he still thinks that this is a pursuit. He's gesturing. He might even be gesturing to the vehicle right next to him. I don't want to zoom in too much because I'm not sure what hand gestures those are, but he did have his window down there for just a moment. He's wearing a black sweater, made some hand gestures either at the helicopters overhead or at that vehicle right next to him, but he's picking up speed here on Flower, possibly going to be jumping on the freeway. Yeah, so he's right under the bridge there, the overpass for Vernon Avenue. I haven't seen him pop out. That was LAPD. It was LAPD Southwest. And my monitor's pretty small, so if you guys see him pop out, let me know, but I haven't seen him come out. Yeah, so this is the 110 at Vernon, and I'm hearing on the scanner that that the suspect vehicle may have hit the police car on the southbound 110. So I'm just listening on the scanner here real quick so I can try to pick it up again. But he may be further down here on the freeway. He may have popped out when we weren't looking. So it's still there. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So he is under the overpass there. Okay, there we go. It is. It's the 110 at Vernon. So right where we lost sight of him, we didn't see anything else because the bridge was covering us. But on the scanner, what I did hear them say was that the suspect had rammed the police car with his vehicle. So we saw that that unit of the LAPD's Southwest Division had gotten directly behind him, and then our view was obscured. But what we heard was that he hit the vehicle, and at that point, you could hear the panic in the officer's voice as he called for help from other officers. And you can see that they have responded here in full force, again, southbound side of the 110 freeway at Vernon. You see the driver door is open now, but what they're working on now is to clear the rest of the vehicle. They want to make sure that nobody else is inside, because again, at one point, there were multiple people in the vehicle. We know that there were at least 3 at one point. But at this point, we believe it's still just the driver there. You saw him being taken away there. But other officers are going to move into the vehicle itself now to just clear it and make sure that nobody else is inside. They've cleared the seats. They're just going to pop the trunk real quick and make sure that that's going to be it. But I'm going to push in here. I'm going to use one of my doublers so we can take a closer look here at the driver. He's now there in the back of that squad car.
To watch more heart-stopping car chases happening across Southern California, subscribe here. Thanks for watching. The Chase is on.